Roman is here from South Florida Water Management. We have Hallie Goldstein, Audubon, Florida. We have Sheriff Carmine Marceno from Lee County. We have the mayors from Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach. Holly Smith and Ray Murphy are here with us. We have the next president of the Florida Senate. Where is she? Is she here? Kathleen Pasadomo? Yes or no? Okay, she did not make it. Ray Rodriguez, is he here? Ray Rodriguez is here. We have Representatives Gia Lombardo and Spencer Roach are here. And then is Cheryl Meads here? Oh, good, good. Thank you for coming. So we appreciate it. We're here. Last week I signed the budget for the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. And so we did a lot of great things in there. Last week we were able to highlight some of the things we did to make sure that we have a record surplus, which we do in the state of Florida. We vetoed out of $100 and some billion, we vetoed $3.1 billion, and no governor had ever vetoed $1 billion before I became governor. So it was a record. And part of the reason we wanted to do that, and part of the reason we've done what we've done really for the 3+ years I've been governor, is we want to make sure that Florida is fiscally sound and built for the long haul. We're addressing huge issues in our state with the budget, and today we're going to talk about what we've been doing to not only honor our promises with respect to conservation, water resources, and environmental stewardship. We've actually exceeded those very lofty goals and lofty promises. And usually in politics, people overpromise and underdeliver. We actually promised very high, but even overdelivered on that. And so we're happy with that. But part of what you have to do is make sure that you have sound footing, that you are growing your tax base, you're keeping taxes low. We don't have an income tax, and we will never have that as long as I have anything to say about it. And we also have adequate reserves that as things happen in the future, some foreseen, some unforeseen, we have the ability to respond without interrupting a lot of the things that we're doing that's significant. Environment, education, infrastructure, all public safety, all we've done for these guys over the past few years. And I think you have to just look. Florida, all the policies we're doing clearly have been effective. The results are as good of results as we've seen. If you look at what we're doing with tourism, if you look at what we're doing with job growth, if you look at what we're doing with new business formations, we lead the nation in that far and away. If you look at what we're doing with all these other things, it's really good. But we also have to deal with a lot of bad policies out of Washington that are causing a lot of harm for an awful lot of people. And so when you come in to office like they did with Biden and you declare war on American energy, well, guess what's going to happen? You now have this situation where we have the highest gas prices that I have ever seen as someone born and raised in Florida. And our gas prices are basically the national average, sometimes even a little lower. There's other states that are much higher. And so that tells you that's a huge, huge problem for a lot of people, be able to commute, take their kids to school, all these different things. It impacts the overall economy because everything that goes into producing things and running businesses relies on energy. And so everything's more expensive. And then, of course, they've printed trillions of dollars, borrowed and printed trillions of dollars. Massive expansion of the money supply, that is causing inflation to go up. So you have the worst inflation we've had in over 40 years, and now they're raising interest rates, they're doing all these other things, which are going to put negative headwinds further on the economy. And so I think we're much better positioned now than we were during the Great Recession because our economy's done a lot better. We have a lot more industry here than we did then. But it would be irresponsible not to plan for some type of Biden-induced economic slowdown. And so by having these big reserves, if it happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, we're not going to have to stop any of our progress or any of our initiatives. Just move a little bit of money from the surplus, plug if there's a hole or two, you just plug it, and you keep going on. So from a fiscal perspective, we're strong. We're ready for whatever Biden throws at us, and the state of Florida is going to do continue to meet our obligations. And I think that that's the prudent way to do it. When you have a lot of resources coming in because people are visiting here, they're buying homes, they're doing all this stuff, there is kind of a compunction to say, some people say, oh, we'll just spend it since we have it here. No, I think we need to be responsible. And so that was why we made sure that we did that, talking billions and billions and billions of dollars sitting in reserves. And we have a rainy day fund specifically that I think we've tripled since I became governor. Then we have a whole bunch of excess revenue that's there, a lot of money, more than we've ever had. And then we get these trust funds that have balances too. So we're strong, we're in good position, and we're going to continue to do that. But doing that, I think, allows us to make announcements like this today. When we set off on doing things, we need to stick with it. It's not like you just do like one year and think it's going to solve every problem. So these are things that is a long-term commitment for the state of Florida. Make sure we have adequate infrastructure, and make sure we have world-class education, and make sure that we have really great environmental stewardship for our really unique natural resources. And so we're in a position to be able to do that. When I got elected governor, I said we were going to make this a priority. A lot of folks wanted to see more action taken, so we put out a very ambitious agenda and executive order as soon as I took office, and we did a lot of things. I mean, we have done policy like the Clean Waterways Act, and there was a whole bunch of stuff involving in it, but one of the things we called for was more financial support for our water resources, water quality efforts, and restoration of the Everglades. And also doing things like making sure that we can combat blue-green algae, red tide. No one was really doing much of anything about that. We have had massive amounts of investment. And, we are actually, with some of these scientific allies of ours that have gotten research funding, there's a whole host of things that are being developed right now to be able to mitigate some of these things. The red tides happen naturally, but how do you mitigate rather than exacerbate? And they've got a lot of great possibilities here. You got to make sure it works with the overall environment. It's not causing other problems. But we've been very, very strong on all of that. The overall commitment for water resources in Everglades for our 4 years was $2.5 billion, which represented a $1 billion increase over the previous 4 years prior to me becoming governor. And so I remember when we announced it, a lot of people were very happy. A lot of people also weren't sure if that was achievable. Well, I'm happy in the budget I signed last week, not only for these 4 years have we done the $2.5 billion, we've actually done much more. It's going to end up being about $3.3 billion over 4 years. That's more than double what had been done over the previous 4 years to meet these obligations. And so, you talk about different infrastructure that we've been able to do. You have the C-44 reservoir on the east part of Lake Okeechobee. That's complete. I mean, they're going to use it this summer if they need it. Then there's some more testing that needs to be done. But we were really supportive of that, and I know they're working on 43 over here on the west side of Lake Okeechobee. And then our stormwater treatment component of the southern reservoir is something that we're ahead of schedule on. And that's something, the Army Corps with the federal component, Biden didn't give us any stimulus or any of the infrastructure money for that project. It's an important project. Nevertheless, we're going to continue to go forward. So we are making huge progress. We've really completely reoriented the state's approach to all of these issues, and I don't think we've ever had a run that has been this productive in the modern history of the state of Florida. So we're happy to have done that, and we're happy to make sure that that's reflected in the budget. Now, there were some other things, some policy stuff that were done during this legislative session. One of the bills I know a lot of people were asking about, this 2508, that was going to try to change some of the stuff, that was being done. And I just want to let you know, 2508, I've heard you. We have vetoed that today, effective. Yeah. so that will, we want to continue going on the path that we set out in January of 2019, and we don't want anything to derail us from that. And I think that this is there was a lot of people that put a lot of good input in, very, very passionate folks. So, we hear you, and we're going to continue on the course that we started a little over 3 years ago. So this year's budget alone that I signed, Freedom First budget last week, has $1.2 billion for Everglades and water resources investments. And so that is far and away the best that we've ever done. That's really what's bringing us to the 3.3. We were definitely going to get to 2.5 million. That was for sure. We knew that was going to happen. But to do that was a really, really big deal. And so I think the folks in the legislature deserve a lot of credit for stepping up to the plate. We actually had $500 million just for our Everglades projects, which broke the record that we had set previously. And so the 4 highest years of fundings for Everglades projects in the history of the state of Florida are the 4 years that I have been in office. We mentioned some of the projects, 40C, 44C, 43, we mentioned the EAA reservoir, but all told, since we started in January 2019, 48 Everglades projects have either broken ground, hit a major milestone, or finished construction. And so that's a lot of... The Freedom First budget also, as enacted, will have $558 million for targeted water quality improvements statewide. And that includes $20 million for down in South Florida with Biscayne Bay. It's $125 million for our wastewater grant program, which provides resources to local communities for wastewater treatment improvements, as well as septic to sewer conversions. And last year we were able to sign Senate Bill 2512, which established a dedicated funding source for this program every year. And we've now already awarded more than $500 million through this program, and the first round of awards focused on the Indian River Lagoon over on the east coast of Florida, but really this is going to be affecting communities all across the state of Florida. We also have $68 million for wastewater and stormwater projects across the state, including the Caloosahatchee Basin and the Indian River Lagoon. We also have $75 million for projects to restore Florida's world-renowned springs, bringing the 4-year total state investment for support for restoration of our springs to $250 million in the state of Florida. And $50 million for alternative water supply projects, and then $15 million, which is $5 million more than current year, and really none of this was being done at all prior to me becoming governor, to innovative technologies to fight red tide and blue-green algae, and an additional $5 million in new funding support to help local governments with any type of cleanup efforts. I mean, if you have one of these blooms, a lot of times the fish, unfortunately, get killed. If you can clean that up, it clears it up quicker. If that just festers there, then it builds, and it gets even worse. And so when we had this in Tampa Bay last summer, Sean and the department were able to send millions of dollars of support. The cleanup was much quicker than it had ever been, and that did mitigate the severity of what we're doing. But I can tell you, we've had, I did a state visit to Israel in 2019. There's companies there we met that are doing stuff in Lake Okeechobee against blue-green algae. And so, obviously our view is with the Army Corps, and they've actually done a good job since I've been governor. I worked with President Trump on it. Try to mitigate these discharges. Don't just say we're going to let the lake go as high as ever and then just start spewing it into the estuaries. And so you have to have a balance. Let that lake be a little lower going into the wet season so that as it rains, the lake will rise. You won't have to do discharges. And I think the last 3 years, we've probably had the lowest number of discharges that we've had. And so that's a good, the management's important. The infrastructure will be complete relatively soon, and that's going to be really, really critical. But at the same time, if you ever have this, you want to be able to have some way to bring some technology to bear to mitigate, because it's something that affects a lot of people, particularly in these communities. And so we're putting investments towards that, and we think that we have gotten some good results, but we think we're actually going to get much better results as the time goes on forward. And I mentioned how they're doing research, and we've been able to partner with different groups. We have Moat Marine Laboratories, which is a little bit north of here, and they've got all kinds of stuff going, testing all kinds of stuff, and they feel very confident that they will have viable solutions to mitigate red tide, and that'll be something that's very important. I remember coming here before I was governor in 2018, some of these communities, and you got hit, it hurt the tourism, it hurt the restaurants, it hurt the overall economy, and then the way the media portrays it, if you have one red tide bloom in one beach somewhere, they will act like this is in every part of Florida, and they'll try to scare people away because that's just what they do. They're not honest. And so we just want to make, well, it's true. I mean, it's true. And so, what we have, so to be able to invest in these technologies and the research, they've been documenting the red tide since the 1800s in the Gulf Coast. And so it's not like that is new, but I think our commitment to try to protect our communities is really, really good. We also have $500 million for a new program that I started with the legislature called Resilient Florida. It helps to fortify our communities and infrastructure so that when we have these major weather events, we're able to mitigate the damage that does occur. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're sea level state by and large. We are obviously always in the eye of these storms over the hurricane season. We'll see what ends up happening this year. People say it's going to be more active. I mean, I think they say that most of the time. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But we're prepared. You got to be prepared either way. And also just understanding, these storms, not even that affect the state of Florida. You have storms that hit Texas, Louisiana with the energy production. Some of that goes offline. $5 a gallon of gas is going to go up even more than that, and so that's a big hazard that this country may have to deal with this summer during hurricane season. But bottom line is these improvements are historic investments, and a lot of times when we're putting in the money, the local communities they're matching what we're doing. So if we do $500 million, that's really $1 billion that's going in to improve our infrastructure and make our communities more resilient. We also have $264 million to improve Florida's state parks, which we have some really, really good state parks. And so that's a record investment in terms of that. So we're excited. I don't think you've probably had a budget in the history of the state that has done more to address issues related to conservation, water quality, and Everglades restoration ever. And so it's all about just setting out that vision. We've never wavered from the vision. We had a lot of good allies in the legislature that were able to help us with this. But at the end of the day, we have not only honored our commitments, we've exceeded what we set out to do, and we're going to continue to do more. This isn't the end of it, but it is a time to say we've been able to deliver for the people of Florida. Now, we also want communities to be able to take advantage of what we have available in the budget. So I'm also announcing that as of today, the application portal for many of the grant programs that I outlined are open today at protectingfloridatogether.gov/grants. So that's protectingfloridatogether.gov/grants. And you can go make the applications. The good thing about this, about these programs like Resilient Florida, it's objective criteria where they're looking to see what the impact would be. If you score high, you got a great chance to get it. It's not like we're only giving it to certain communities based on other considerations. And so I think it's done well. And the portals are open to apply for the wastewater grants, innovative tech, water quality improvement grants for Biscayne Bay and Spring Coast watersheds. And portals to apply for additional projects, including Resilient Florida, will be open soon. So great year. great effort. We're happy to be here. I remember being here before I was even governor, saying that we were going to make it a priority, because I know a lot of people really throughout the state, but particularly in Southwest Florida, really concerned about making sure that we're doing our best to be good stewards of a very special piece of property that we're able to be inhabitants of here in the great state of Florida. I've got some great folks here that are going to be able to offer some comments, and so I'm going to bring them up. So we'll start with Secretary Sean Hamilton from Florida DEP.
I mean, wow. I mean, as obviously the lead administrator for one of our environmental agencies, I think I could summarize my points into a couple of sentences, right? Thank you, Governor. I think... You know, and as a 15-year veteran of the department, trust me, that comes from the heart and the soul, and understanding what that means to an agency that's dedicated its mission to protecting our resources. I'm happy to be here today. You know, the governor talked about his first week of office doing the $2.5 billion. You know, he mentioned about those folks that doubted the ability to deliver on that. I won't say if I was in that group or not. Because, again, that was, at the time, that was an amazing, amazing commitment that we all wanted to believe. We all wanted to put our trust and faith in. And I'm happy to be here today to know that we're going to surpass that by over $800 million. So, that, I mean, again, since 2019, that's $3.3 billion in Everglades restoration and the protection of our Florida water resources. And again, that's more than any other governor in Florida's history. And again, that's amazing if you can put that in that type of context for anything, right? So we've managed to break ground. The governor talked about it on 48 long overdue projects, you know, associated with Everglades restoration. Again, those are critical to reducing the harmful discharges that the governor's mentioned. Again, I do have to acknowledge the hard work of our partners at the Water Management District for leading the charge and living that day in and day out. And so I do want to acknowledge all of their amazing work. We've awarded funding for water quality projects to restore springs, advance water infrastructure, and reduce nutrients in our waterways. We know that's an important component of the long-standing need for restoration. But we've also expanded our water quality monitoring network, enhanced data collection efforts to support the science needed to combat harmful algae blooms and help guide environmental projects and restoration. Again, the governor mentioned using a thoughtful science-based process to decide to be best stewards of this record funding is still core to our mission and will guide us going forward. But, you know, again, I also have to acknowledge there's a lot of work to be done, right? And we'll continue that. But thanks to the governor's leadership, we're in the best position to move the state forward on our efforts to protect our water quality resources and restore our precious resources. And so with that being said, I'm happy to announce as well the opening of that portals that the governor's mentioned. That's an important tool, and I encourage our partners and our communities to take advantage of that. Reach out to department resources. We'll guide you through that process because, again, we want to make sure we're there for you at your point of need. And so with that, again, thank you, Governor, for your leadership.
All right, Chairman of the South Florida Water Management Board, Chauncey Goss.
It's a pretty good morning in Fort Myers Beach today. It's a great morning at Fort Myers Beach. Welcome back to Lee County, Governor. It's great to see you. Secretary Hamilton, Dr. Brooks, thanks for being here. Every time I see you here, it's good news for South Florida, so you got to keep coming back. Absolutely. That started on your second day in office. You visited us here, just not too far away, and you said you were going to announce Executive Order 19-12. It was achieving more for Florida's environment. You said you were going to ask for an unprecedented $2.5 billion that we just heard about. I was a believer, Sean. And the reason you did that is you wanted to put an end to the toxic discharges that we'd seen just out here. We're standing in ground zero. Our host today is Marty Harity. He's back there. He's probably hiding a little bit from us, former council member from the city of Sanibel. Marty. Thanks, Marty. Thanks for hosting us today. No one knows the pain of those discharges more than Marty. His business has suffered, and more importantly, his employees suffered. Think of all the people you hire who were hurt by those toxic discharges. So the progress we're making here is real. It's got an economic impact, and it impacts real people. So, Governor, you have promises made and then you have promises kept, and the governor's Freedom First budget ensures that ambitious goal of $2.5 billion that we heard about not only met but surpassed. I mean, it's just amazing that we were able to do that. The total now being more than $3 billion, which is double the investment which was made in the previous 4 years. I'm so proud to be a part of that progress that we've made in the last 3 years. You know, it takes leadership, it takes resources, it takes a really competent team to be able to execute on that. We have the leadership from Governor DeSantis. We have the resources from Governor DeSantis and a very, very effective legislature, and we have the ability to commit to execute with the men and women, the hardworking men and women of the South Florida Water Management District, who are led by our Executive Director, Drew Bartlett. So you take those three things together, and we have been able to make some great progress. The governor mentioned those 48 projects where we have milestones on. I saw you 2 weeks ago when it was 41. So we are definitely cruising along here on our projects, and that's good. That's all good news. So I'm very proud of that. But I don't want to look at just the projects that we're doing and just the amount of dirt we're turning, because we're doing a great job there. We're spending money. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But let's look at why. Let's look at the results. Are we starting to see the results? Yeah, we are. When you start looking at lake management, you look at the last 3 years, we have not had harmful discharges in the last 3 years because we're managing the lake better with the Corps of Engineers and with the governor's leadership on that. So thank you for that. Our goal is to move more water south, so we look at that. Is that a result we've been achieving? Yeah. When Highway 41, Tamiami Trail was raised, we are now moving way more water into Everglades National Park. And when you look at some of our graphs that show averages over the last 20 years versus last year, we are now moving water into the park. Those graphs are green where they should be. We now see a river of grass. That's what we're supposed to see. So we're really excited about that. We're making progress there. And ultimately what that water is doing is it's going down into Florida Bay. It's reducing our salinity levels down there. So this is all coming together in the way it's supposed to be. We've got a long way to go. But we're seeing a lot of results quickly, and that's a testament to great leadership and a testament to the fact that the leadership we're going to leave Florida better for future generations. That's what the governor said when he took office. We've got some future generations right over his shoulder there. We promise we are going to leave Florida better for future generations. And Governor, thank you so much for your leadership.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, and you know, we do want to make sure that we're doing all we can. It's important for businesses like this, but you know, in Florida, it's also, you know, we saved a lot of these restaurants because we kept them open and we let them make these decisions, and so our restaurant have never done better than they've been doing in the last year and a half. I mean, because people are coming down for tourism. It's very hard to even get into some of these restaurants. And, you know, it's like for locals, it's like you look and try to find. I was talking to a fellow that's got some great restaurants in another part of the state. It's like he can't find management because the servers are making so much in tips. It'd be a pay cut to be on a salary. But, you know, that's good. I mean, that's what we want to see because those are folks. But, you know, there were a lot of those folks who were in this industry, you know, people who are servers, bartenders, people who are, you know, making food and just in part of this whole thing, you know, they were just roadkill for people like Fauci. He didn't give a damn about whether they had a job or not. And we did, and we wanted to make sure that we were standing by them. So I think and you've seen a lot of people move restaurants here from other parts of the country because it was a much better environment. So we are proud of that, and we want to keep that going. Okay, Captain Daniel Andrews from Captains for Clean Water.
What a great day to be here on Fort Myers Beach. I think we all realize that Governor DeSantis meant business on his second day in office when he cleaned out the whole South Florida Water Management District and put Chauncey and Charlotte and Cheryl and a wonderful board of people that really care about our waters. And I can tell you, as a fishing guide, and you know, we got a lot of our guide buddies here today, it's hard work. You're at the mercy of the weather, the tides, the fish, and it's to try to put your clients on a good experience when you have these factors discharges toxic algae, fish kills, it's depressing. When you look at what this fishery was 10, 20 years ago, and you look at it now, it's sad to see what's happened. And, you know, I can't say 4 years ago that I was hopeful, but I think at the time we knew that we had to keep fighting. And all the restaurants, the hotels, everybody had to get together. 4 years later, we're more hopeful than we ever thought we could have been. When you look at these record investments that the governor's put in to Everglades restoration and really prioritize the projects that actually get the job done. The EAA reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee to restore the flow the way nature intended. We're confident. I have confidence that Tuck and Colin will be able to get out there and catch tarpon and enjoy the resource. And that's what this is all about. This is the foundation of our economy. And now I think today with the veto of Senate Bill 2508, it sends an incredibly powerful message. I think everybody sees that, you know, when there is counter efforts to water quality issues, you're going to get steamrolled by Governor DeSantis on that one. And that's for sure. That's for sure. Governor, I can't thank you enough for the investments that you've made in our office, the shrimpers, the restaurants, the hotels, our whole economy here. It has a bright future because we're going to have clean water.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Everglades Foundation CEO Eric Eichenberg.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. I, too, want to lend my sincere gratitude for this exciting and memorable day. To be back here in Lee County. We were here on January 10th, 2019, as it's been mentioned, and now June 8th, 2022. These are two critical dates in this effort. Now representing an organization that's been around for 30 years, there's been a lot of politicians who just talk. And you've heard a lot of talk over the years about the Everglades and the need to end discharges east and west and how they wish to combat blue-green algae. This governor, not only on day 2, but on day 1, in an inaugural address, made it clear that we were going to solve the issues of water quality. We were going to send water south in the intent that God had created, from Lake Okeechobee down to Florida Bay. And not only did he lay that out in that address, but he also made it very clear that he was not going to allow the knuckle draggers to stand in the way. And he's done that yet again here today. He is not deterred. He's laid out a vision. He's laid out a goal. And we have followed, all of us, all of the advocates who are desperately seeking to have an Everglades that's here for future generations. We see the passion, we see the dedication, and we see the results that the governor has put forward in 3.5 years. These are the most remarkable 3.5 years for America's Everglades in the history of this effort to save this national resource. And let me also say there's talk about the investment. Dollars matter. To build infrastructure, you need money, and the governor and the legislature are putting up those dollars. But the governor's leadership 1 year ago today, when it comes to the way Lake Okeechobee is going to be operated, the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, LOSOM, as people talk about it, when the governor weighed in last April and told the Army Corps of Engineers to use greater flexibility in the way the lake is managed, that is the plan that they've announced. The whole effort here is to end discharges east and west, store, clean, and send water south all the way down to Florida Bay. That's the direction it needs to go. That's the direction that this administration and this governor has set forth. There is no better friend of the Everglades than Ron DeSantis.
Well, we appreciate that. We're happy with the progress that we've made. You know, we're going to continue to do all this, and so we're not going to turn back. We're going to continue going forward. But it was a big year. There's no question, and we've done a lot of great things. But it seems like we're able to continue up in the ante, and that's what it's all about. And quite frankly, we've got a lot of public support from across the state of Florida. The people want to see us address these issues, and I think part of the reason why we've been successful is because when I set out the vision, I wasn't just doing that in the ether. I mean, you have a lot of people who responded very positively to that, and I think that that's really helped spur a lot of action with the legislature. So good day, good budget, and we're built for the long haul with our reserves and surplus, and we're going to continue to be able to meet the needs of a very dynamic and growing state. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Governor DeSantis, we see the numbers, we see the straw polls. We know that you were running for governor. When will you decide whether to run for president?
I don't do straw polls. They just put my name in these things, you know. It's just like, so, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, they sell merchandise and everything. I kind of like to get royalties on that. So we've got a lot more stuff that we're doing here, and so we're obviously this budget was a huge thing. You know, it took us a long time to analyze every little line item. You know, these individual line items, when you go through it, it'll be in there. You don't necessarily know why it was there. Sometimes the legislator will say, here's why they did it. You got to look at the track record and all that stuff. So my staff did a great job analyzing all this, and of course we had to make decisions about some of these items, and we've been able to have I think really good budget. We did slim it down because it needed to do that, but I think we're in really good shape.
Just to follow up, are you considering running?
I've addressed this so many times, so go ahead.
Governor, developing right now, there are reports out that say your spokeswoman, Christine Fiscal, registered as a foreign agent. Do you have any response to this?
She's right behind you, so you can ask her. I have no idea. So, I mean, I think that. I love it. No, but I mean, look, I think you have some of these media outlets, like these legacy outlets in, out of D.C. and New York, and anybody that's standing up and fighting back, which she has done, they want to smear, and so they will do hit pieces, and that's just how they do. And you know what? That doesn't work anymore because nobody in the public believes they're garbage. That's right.
Are you considering a special legislative session, perhaps dealing with constitutional carry, and then also Anthony Sabatini called for an emergency special session to ban drag shows in front of children?
Well, I think on the latter, I've asked my folks to look. I mean, we have child protective statutes on the books. We have laws against child endangerment, and I think this came out of you. You had this Dallas, Texas. You had these very young kids, and they must have been like 9, 10 years old, at a, quote, drag show where they were putting money in the underwear of this, and that is totally inappropriate. That is not something that children should be exposed to, and so we may have the ability to deal with that if something like that happens. There's also very graphic language in that thing, and people got a lot of video and a lot of stuff from it, and I think that was really disturbing. And like, look, we want to have our kids be kids, okay? They want to have normal environment. Part of the reason why we did we fought the fight with parents' rights and education is because there's a movement to inject these things like gender ideology in elementary schools even. And my view is our schools need to be teaching these kids to read and write and add and subtract and do the things what it's supposed to be done in school. Injecting these agendas into it is wrong, and that's why we did the Parents' Rights and Education bill. But when you see those images, Texas isn't exactly known to be San Francisco. I mean, it's a relatively conservative state culturally, and to see that was not something that was. So we do have some. So we're going to look to see what could be done under existing statutes. But I do think targeting these kids with all this stuff. It used to be kids would be off limits. It used to be everybody agreed with that, and now it just seems like there's a concerted effort to be exposing kids more and more to things that are not age appropriate. And I think our state in Florida, we need to be a family-friendly state. We need to be a good state for people to be able to raise a family, get a high-quality education, have a lot of opportunities without having some political agenda shoved down their throats.
Do you believe that Republicans in Congress should follow Florida's lead and raise the age to purchase?
Well, I think that actually has been ruled unconstitutional even in California, and so I'm not sure that that is ultimately, and that was the issue I had with it when I was running. But I think if you look at what we've done with school security in Florida, with this budget now, we'll have done close to $750 million just since I've been governor on school security. And so you saw with Parkland, I think one of the things, and we work with a lot of the Parkland parents. I mean, people like Ryan Petty, Andy Pollock, all that, and the failures of both law enforcement and the school system, I think were really, really difficult because obviously you don't want to see anything happen, but if something could have been prevented by holding this guy accountable when you had all these different opportunities to do it and you don't, that's a problem. And so we wanted to make sure that we were providing the resources necessary so that these are not going to be good places to go. If you're one of these nut jobs, just know if you try that, you're going to end up on your ass, and it's not going to end up being pretty, and you're not going to walk out of there alive. So we've done that, and I think we've really led the way on focusing on making our schools safe. I think we've also done a lot with mental health, and that spans a variety of things. I mean, traditional mental health is just people going through normal things in life. They're not a danger to the community, most people that need mental health services. But you do have some people that are really just off their rocker, and you need an intervention when you have that. I mean, honestly, they used to have people would go to these insane asylums, and it was something that these are folks that couldn't function in society. They were a danger to the community, and then they were basically committed. We've kind of deinstitutionalized that now, so you really need to have a concerted effort to be able to have interventions to identify some of the people who are not safe to be around the community. And it can involve firearms, but it can involve way more ways where these folks can be able to harm. And so these types of people who are doing things, targeting kids, targeting innocent people, they are really, really bad people. They are not typically, they're not dumb because they pick their targets and they know, and the Buffalo guy said he wanted to go where he knew there wouldn't be blowback from people being armed, and so he tried to find a gun-free zone. So they do analyze it like that, but they have something that's wrong with them that would cause them to do it, and most of the time there will be signals that this is somebody that's not with it. And I know Carmine, they've worked very aggressively to be able to identify these types of threats. But when you're dealing with it, what you do is you focus on the criminal. You focus on the lunatic. You don't kneecap the rights of law-abiding citizens. Right. Thanks, everybody.
Here's the beer.
What's that?